Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this afternoon's session. We have two sessions for you today. The first one is Jessica Miller and Avonlea Hanson's presentation on turning a face-to-face course into a HyFlex Open Educational Resource with Canvas.
Hello, welcome to our presentation. The topic today is turning a face-to-face course into a HyFlex Open Educational Resource with Canvas. My name is Jessica Miller and I teach French at UW-Eau.
My name is Avonlea Hanson. I'm an instructional designer with our Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning and Learning Technology Services at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. Today, we'd like to acknowledge that the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire occupies the sacred and ancestral lands of Indigenous peoples. We honor the land of the Ojibwe and Dakota nations. Thank you. So this is our abstract for what we are going to go through today. We'll dive right into our slides to tell you a little bit more as we continue on. So Jessica is going to start off today by sharing more about the French 201 course that she redesigned.
Thank you, Avonlea. So this is an intermediate French 1 course. And I started redesigning it about 5 years ago, first to make it more accessible so as to allow students to engage with the material in different modes. So, incorporating more media like videos and texts and culture, speaking, reading, writing, listening. I also wanted to show that inclusive language can be the norm. Another reason was to have first-person accounts of underrepresented cultures amplified in the course, because often in French textbooks you find sort of the stereotypical, French family as the default representation, and that is definitely not what the French-speaking world is about. And added to that, I also wanted to add elements of transparency in learning and teaching, which is a framework that helps students from all backgrounds understand why you're learning certain things and what the best strategies are for success. So basically, I wanted structures in this course that would level the playing field, meaning that I want all my students to succeed, and I want them to access my material in whatever their preferred ways are. And I added little stars there because this, was done over many years, and I'm really adding a layer after layer after layer. And some of those take more time. And so if you are ready to transform your courses, I think you should be aware of that. The HyFlex model, let me unpack that a little bit. It's really a way in which students can access your course and meet your course outcomes in different ways. And so for this, the way I teach this class is hybrid and mostly face-to-face. So 3 times per week we meet face-to-face, and then 1 is an asynchronous class. But the class is also flexible in the way that some students, if they have to miss class, for example, for various reasons, they could still meet the outcomes if they take the class asynchronously. And so on this slide, you see I've underlined synchronous because that's how I teach the class on Mondays, and then asynchronous on Tuesdays, synchronous on Wednesdays, and synchronous on Fridays. But you can do a variety. So here's an example of the of what I meant with transparency in learning and teaching. And I'm using colors here to have different categories that can be seen easily with the purpose. So what is the goal of a particular activity, the task in itself, with quantity to meet expectations, and then the criteria. And this is a screenshot from my Canvas page. And so you can see at the top, I also give students an estimate of the time commitment that they need to succeed. And then here I give them links to other Canvas pages or PDF documents with the scoring rubrics and with steps to success and submission guidelines. And those documents stay the same throughout the semester. They don't change, but students can refer to them here. So this is another screenshot of a Canvas page that shows how I use banners so that students understand where in the class they are. I also use icons, so here they know that this is what they have to do at home and how much time it's going to take. Here I have a video tutorial with the vocab so that they can not just read the new vocab, but also hear it. And I post that. I embed this in the in Canvas, but also have a link to Kaltura as well as YouTube. And then this is a practice activity that's embedded into Canvas. So students don't need to create accounts. They don't need to go anywhere else. They just work in Canvas. This is the icon I use for class work, and it's in the same page. I broke into different screenshots for the purpose of this presentation, but it's all on the same page in Canvas. And I give them the key to the, so basically model answers. So if they miss class, they can still take this course asynchronously and then write their answers and then check with the model answers that are provided. And I give them an outline with, again, the timing of how much time they should spend on each activity, so that if I'm not there, if they're doing this on their own, they know, they can stop after 15 minutes and then move on. Here is an example of photos I use once a week to help engage students in developing vocabulary, grammar, and cultural competence. And this is something nice you can do in Canvas. You have all your material, you can upload the photo, and it'll be there asynchronously for students who prefer to engage with the material that way, or for students who want to take a look again later. And it's nice to have it in Canvas because you can also link to the newspaper article. And this is an example of how I embed videos into Canvas. And I caption the videos in Kaltura. So you see here, it shows that the video has been captioned. And then when I share my Canvas site, actually the videos don't necessarily embed, but if I create a link to my Kaltura video, people who want to use the caption video will have access to it. And I also post the original YouTube link to show that this is a video, public video on YouTube. And so, in case people want to know the source where I got it from. And so all this is part of my goal to provide material as OER, so Open Educational Resource. And there are many advantages to doing that. The first one is that students don't need to purchase any material, and they can have access to that material in the future. And this is really helpful because research has shown that students who don't have the material right at the beginning of the semester really suffer from that. And then what's nice is that I can do quick updates for cultural content. So, culture changes all the time. And what's nice with that structure is that I can just plug in new videos or new vocab, and I don't have to adopt a whole new book or just make do with the book that I currently have. And now Avonlea is going to explain how she has helped me develop it and share it in Canvas Commons and into a continuing education sub-account.
Yes, thanks, Jessica. So throughout the French 201 course, the Universal Design for Learning, or UDL principles, were really implemented to be able to help with those multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of expression for the students when they are completing their work throughout the course. So this structure really can help to optimize the individual choice and autonomy for the students, offering the options and the alternatives for different visual and auditory information, and still using multiple tools for construction and composition as the students work their way through their course. The UDL framework really serves as that final big structure that overshadows everything in the course to really make it accessible, as Jessica was saying, and making sure it's inclusive for all of her students when they're doing the work in this course. So as Jessica mentioned, there's a couple different ways that we have shared this course for others to be able to use. So the first one was using the Canvas Commons. And so the Canvas Commons is open to anybody that's using the Canvas LMS platform. So you can be at different institutions, different grade levels, different subjects, anybody can use that. And so we publish the course to the Canvas Commons, and folks can come in and preview the course ahead of time. They can import the course into their own Canvas account. They can download it and be able to utilize some of those materials. So by utilizing the Canvas Commons, it really preserves the structure of the course itself and makes it really easy to transfer to other people to be able to use. So as Jessica had shown too, she was very intentional with the design of a lot of her resources. As an example, the videos. They're not only embedded in the course, but there are multiple ways to watch those videos to make sure that they're accessible to anybody outside of our own institution as well. So the second way then that we've also shared the French 201 course in its entirety is using our continuing education sub-account in Canvas. So in this area, we are able to create Canvas courses where we can enroll people with outside our university's email addresses, so using like a Gmail account or from another institution, and enroll them in the course so they're able to see and interact with the course. This is really helpful for those folks that do not use Canvas at all at their own institution. They can see what the course looks like. They can still click through it and interact with the material. They can download documents, they can watch videos and get links to those kinds of things. Or through communicating with Jessica, we'd be able to export the course or give them options to on some of the tools and the media and the pieces that are built within the course as well. So this is really nice for those that, again, don't already use Canvas, but they can see what this entire structure looks like and maybe can find a way to be able to utilize it then in their own teaching as well. So as we look to the future, there are still a lot of things to be considered with OER and the importance of their implementation in our teaching and learning in our courses. So the continuation for curating and designing these resources will need to grow for adoption to continue. We need to find ways to reach broad numbers of folks and make the resources digestible and usable on all different levels. And traditional teaching resources like textbooks will probably need to continue to adapt as the landscape grows and changes and is shaped by the contributions of OER sources as well. So we'll still have to consider too, how are we making our shifts in our own classes and our campuses and our systems? What support will our instructors need to be able to help to choose and create, innovate, and adapt OER for their own teaching? And what barriers will we continue to face as we continue to push on with this as well? So Jessica's example of redesigning French 201 to be inclusive with her design and adaptation of OER sources shows the value and the potential of our teaching and learning in the upcoming years ahead. Thank you for joining us today, and appreciate also the support from the Center of Excellence in Teaching and Learning at UW-Eau Claire.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions, please feel free to add them in the discussion or the live Q&A chat, and we're happy to answer anything. We were able to record a bit ahead of time, so we had that all ready to go, and happy to join live today too for anything people may have questions about.
While we're waiting for questions to come in, can you tell me what your next steps are for expanding this kind of course? Do you have other instructors targeted for course development, or what are your plans?
The campus work on OER?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know for in terms of at UW-Eau Claire this summer, there'll be more instructors that are slated to work on creating more OER resources or to be able to pull in OER resources into their class to do a lot of things that Jessica has been doing as well. So we're looking at innovating this and continuing the outreach on our campus as well.
And Avonlea, how did you, or Jessica, like how did you connect and know about the ability to, say, enroll people from outside the institution? So I know that as instructors, you're used to the Canvas interface.
Yeah,
But
so when I was trying to publish this as an OER, the easiest thing was to start with Commons, but then I had colleagues who were interested in accessing the resource. And so I thought, well, just export, you can export a Canvas course. I thought it creates HTML pages and I could just put them online on my website. And then some pages, it was sort of clunky. Most of it worked, some of it didn't. And I just asked Avonlea, what are some creative ways that we could share this for people who don't have Canvas, but at a minimum cost, because I'm not a website designer, like how can we do this efficiently? And so Avonlea came up with the idea.
Yeah, and we have, through our continuing education department at UW-Eau Claire, they have a number of courses that they offer pretty consistently, and I've worked with a number of the instructors and staff over there, and knowing that can be a really nice, seamless process, we thought this would be a really good fit, as Jessica had mentioned, especially for those that aren't using Canvas outside of the institution. It can be, you can't really take a course export and put it anywhere. So at least then they get to see the structure and can still download documents, get video links, or explore using Canvas potentially in the future for the course as well.
Yeah, thank you. And do you have any record of how many times it's been viewed or downloaded, or is there a way to track that data?
So you track it because in order to access the continuing education sub-account, they have to give me their email address. So I have to add their email manually, and then they will receive access. And so I haven't advertised it very much. So I think it's about equal from Canvas Commons, maybe about overall 12 to 15 downloads from Canvas Commons, and about also a dozen people who wanted to be added on the sub account. But then as so it's still so new, I started just sending it out to a few colleagues that had expressed interest at the end of January. But as I'm teaching those courses again, I'm sort of making the final tweaks, and then I will advertise it more widely. But there is, the fact that they need to email me, that definitely is a barrier. I feel, it's not like you can just browse a website and decide if it's right for you. You actually have to contact me. So eventually I would like to move to a system where people can just, download. But in the meantime, I think it's nice to actually have access and know who's using my material, because since it's so new, I can communicate and say, hey, do you have any feedback? Is it user friendly? So I think that's one advantage for the beginning.
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
We're hoping to see too that there'll be more folks that not only want to incorporate OER resources, but also looking at this HyFlex model too that Jessica has really adapted for this course of having some different opportunities for the students to choose how they're engaging. And while I know that was a lot of heavy lifting and work on Jessica's part to create that, it's something now that she can sustain and continue on with, which is really helpful. And hopefully over time, people are able to take pieces of that and work towards some opportunities for that, whether or not their class can be entirely HyFlex, but maybe there's a unit or a week or something that could be helpful for our students and their learning opportunities as well.
Yeah, and we've got about 2 minutes left, so I want to make sure there's nobody in the chat or discussion. But with the final couple minutes, what has the reaction of the students been to the changes?
It's hard to say because everything is just so new. I would say one thing that I'm seeing is a lot fewer questions as to what's happening in the course, because everything is organized so consistently and students have access to the material in so many different ways that things always seem clear. I don't know if I'm in denial but I do get a lot fewer requests as far as directions are concerned or schedule or deadlines. So I think that's one advantage of having the Canvas course, really organized like this.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and I'm sure that's something that a lot of people have experienced, especially the past year too, is sometimes it's just reducing the barriers for students of being able to have things organized. And that just takes off that extra mental load of them having to figure out where to find the information, and they can spend more of that energy then on the work that they're doing in the class.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate the presentation and the insights, and I think it's time for us to move to our next presenter. But thank you for taking the time to share your wonderful ideas with us today. Have a good day. So next, I would like to introduce Hassan Elannani, I'm sorry, and he's here to share his presentation about open educational resources and equity.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Hassan Elannani from University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, Department of Educational Leadership, Literacy, and Foundations. And the reason behind my interest in open educational resources and equity is basically the impact that COVID-19 pandemic has had on students in general, and especially in students who are working and they have to work between two jobs to make ends meet. So my objectives in this presentation is first describe how COVID deepened inequalities in our society, to list the benefits of OER for students, to evaluate the use of OER in educational leadership courses, and to present areas of improvement. We live in difficult times, and this difficult times have been made worse by our systemic inequalities. Then COVID hit, and we have now 74.7 million people who have lost work, with most jobs lost in industries that pay below average wages. And most of the people who are working in these industries are from low income, minority, and colored populations. 24 million adults reported experiencing hunger, and more than 6 million said they fear being evicted or foreclosed due to their inability to make housing payments. That's how deep was the economic and social crisis. On the other side, the collective wealth of the 651 billionaires have jumped by over 1 trillion since the beginning of the pandemic. That's a 36% jump. So this deep inequalities and this lack of inequity can make anybody's eyes be open and to ask questions why this is happening. And now this has impacted students in our colleges and universities. The prices of textbooks have increased by 82%. In my education leadership program, which is a graduate program, the textbooks prices are skyrocketing, between $65 to $140 a book. And some of the courses, not only this institution, but other institutions, they require 2-3 textbooks per course. And you can imagine how much that represents in terms of expenses. 7% average annual increase in tuition, fees, and housing. And there is in 2020, 65% of undergraduate students were unable to purchase at least one textbook. Take this in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic and the loss of jobs by many students who have been working part-time to pay and help with the tuition. And you can see that we need to have a solution. And so based on this, I was thinking about using educational resources, open educational resources in my classes. As a new faculty at University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, I looked at this and found this is a good definition by UNESCO, that OER is teaching, learning, or research materials that are in the public domain or released with an intellectual property license that allows for free use, adaptation, and distribution. So the keywords of free use, adaptation, distribution caught my eyes and said, okay, maybe I can use these free resources instead of requiring students to purchase those expensive textbooks. The goal is to enable the creation of free, universally accessible educational materials, which anyone could use for teaching or learning purposes. To make them universally accessible actually is one way to democratize education, to make education equitable, and to try to bridge the gap between those who have and those who don't have the resources. So educational resources represent a solution to this. And just to share with you, these are now trademarks of OER is the Creative Commons licensing options. As I try to learn more about them and how to use them in my allocation of resources. So this is very interesting, and it talks to the licensing options to differentiate between what can be shared and what can be not shared. So it is important to share this with the students, and I plan to do that as one of the areas of improvement for my classes in the future. Another area to be to share about OER is the 5 permissions of OER: to retain, to reuse, to revise, to remix, and to redistribute. And this plays into the accessibility of OER and how to make them free and reusable and shared, so we can democratize education, and so we can also fight inequity that is killing our society. So during the summer of 2020 and fall 2021, I used materials from OER sources in my educational leadership courses. And these courses, they range from educational supervision, so teacher supervision, to educational leadership, to even introduction to superintendency. Those courses were geared towards professionals, and they are well-to-do compared to the students maybe in undergrad courses, but still they have to pay for a lot of courses, and on the top of that they need to pay for all their own programs. So they are paying full tuition at the same time. They're paying for those textbooks. So I experimented with this using OER resources from University of Wisconsin libraries, OER websites, and public domain. That includes articles, books, videos, research reports, research documents. There are so many resources that have open licensing, and they are not restricted by any copyrights. And that constitutes zero cost to the students. And so this is at the initial stage of development, so as to understand the benefit to the students, and also understand how it can be improved in the future. For some of the benefits, first, it saves instructors significant time and effort on resource development. For example, a PowerPoint presentation that was developed by an MIT professor, or an assignment that was developed by a Harvard professor. So those high quality resources are offered free, but I have to change them and adapt them to my course and make them available to my students. And so this helps students advance their learning inside and outside of the classroom by not limiting myself to the textbook, which is most of the time outdated, and it's costly. And while we have more updated information that is relevant, and that also is culturally sensitive and culturally responsive. So as I work on OER in my classrooms, I'm trying to hit those 5 R's and implement them in my courses, depending on the students, because my courses are most of the time, because of COVID, they are online, either synchronous or asynchronous. And I'm trying to, when things go back to normal, since we are using hybrid format in our courses, that I will be able to have face-to-face with my students and develop this more. So my areas of improvement is to familiarize students with OER licensing options and the 5 permissions early in the semester, because they are not familiar with this new. They are happy because they don't have to buy textbooks, and they see these resources that are available on Canvas, and they are not, but they don't understand exactly how this licensing works and those permissions work. So I would like also to allow students to curate readings and other course content, so they can have ownership of their learning, and they can also use this learning outside of the classroom. And the third thing is to optimize Canvas for OER purposes by sharing this with the Canvas Commons, and also making this available and accessible to the community in my university and other universities. So in conclusion, I think that this is an empirical action research type of study that I would like to continue and see actually how the students are benefiting not only economically, but also educationally, and how this impacts their learning in the long run. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Hassan. That's a really interesting idea for using open educational resources. I encourage those folks who are listening to submit questions to the live chat or the discussion forum. And if anybody would like to ask questions, that's perfectly fine. We have some time to do that as well. So Hassan, while we're waiting to see if the audience has questions, um, I'm curious to know how difficult it was for you to find suitable open educational resources for your classes. Like, how did you get started? How difficult was it to find something that was suitable? How did you go about doing this?
Yeah, very good question. First thing is I look at the course objectives and the topics that I have to cover, and then just go to Google. My first my first stop is to Google, see if I can find something under Google, because under Google I can limit my research to open resources, to open education resources, and that helps me find the most recent research reports on that. My second access, or my second resource, is the University of Wisconsin libraries. We have tons of resources available there, and I know University of Wisconsin is paying millions of dollars for those resources. So, excuse me, I go there and look for resources that are open and don't have any licensing restrictions to them, and so that I can make them available to my students, so they can download them onto their computers. Because this is the problem here. There is a good article that was purchased by the university, but it has licensing restrictions, copyright. So I don't want to infringe on the copyright. So I look for those resources. And my third resource is those universities that are offering open resources, like MIT, like Harvard, like different universities that are related to my objectives. So I condense that information and try to make it not overwhelming to my students, but at the same time to supplement it so it can be as like a textbook for my students. But now this is the area that I would like to work on, so I can synthesize that information into a book, so that the students can read, have all the materials in sequence listed there by content according to the syllabus sequence. So it will be a something that you can excuse me. I have symptoms from the Moderna second dose. Yeah.
I'm glad you got the vaccine.
Thank you. Yeah, I had it like Wednesday, and it takes three days to have those symptoms. So this is why this is my goal, is to have the students work on this with me. So we can develop those booklets, textbook, if you can say, that is ours, and we can reuse, we can add to it, we can add to it every year, and make it accessible to other faculty.
So did you have your students help you create these booklets as part of the course?
This is my plan. This is my plan. I mean, in the summer, I joined university in August, but in the summer and the fall, I'm now familiarizing myself with OER, and my next step is to create this booklet, to have all this information, like the 5 R's say, to retain, to reuse, and then redistribute, so that we can make this learning accessible to the students, and at the same time we keep updating it and adding to it, and it is owned by all, by the students, by the instructors, and by the whole community.
Can you tell me a bit? I know that, like, when you buy the textbook, you also frequently get access to the test bank and lots of pictures, maybe some links. So how do these open access, open education resources compare to the resources that you might buy through a publisher?
this is something that it requires a lot of work from the instructor, and I think my philosophy that is driving me is that I should be a good example for the leaders who will be principals and will be supervising teachers. I always, when I was a school principal, I always tell my teachers not to teach from the textbook. Teaching from the textbook is not a good practice. You have to look at different resources, and so I don't want to use just the textbook, the publisher's textbook, and also their assessments and everything. I would like to give students a holistic education where we can get learning from different resources, and that requires work, but it is fun. It is fun because I don't rely. It's a these are graduate courses. We're not doing. I'm not doing summative assessments like multiple choice questions. It's all papers and projects and research papers. So this is conducive to their learning, and I am helping my students, to be good examples for their teachers when they are in positions of power. Yeah, it is not easy because I know faculty, they publish books, and these textbooks are published and it's good, but at the same time we have equity issues. We have so I would like to my students to at the same time save on textbook money and learn better.
So I appreciate that comment. So have you collected any data, or do you have any information about how the students may have learned better or differently or more or less than?
Yeah, my first data are the papers, the research papers, the projects the students are using, because I found out that they are using the OER resources more than any other resource, and they find them related to the topics. They find them more relevant and also more updated. And what happened is that I know textbooks, they have a lot of we learn from textbooks all the time, but there are also some textbooks that are open license. They're openly licensed, so I also use those. And some of them come with activities, with assessments, assignments. And the good thing is that I can change those assignments. So going back to your question, this is my next step is to gather data formally using IRB and the research protocols, so I can gather the more information. So far I have anecdotal data, but I would like to do it more empirically next time.
And so what are your students saying?
My students' first question before the semester starts is there textbook required? And then I said, okay, no textbook, and they're all happy. Okay, we don't have to buy the textbook. But then they feel happy because all the information, all the materials are uploaded on Canvas. So they have that information available to them before any, so they don't have to worry about going back and forth asking me where is this article, where is this resource. Everything is so I spend a lot of time collecting those materials and uploading them on Canvas. Now I have two objectives. First is to create a booklet, and second to complete this research and see how it is beneficial to the students.
Well, that is really interesting, and thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. So you've motivated me to go out and start taking a look at more open educational resources. So
yeah.
I would be interested in hearing more. So please come back and share with us again.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Thank you very much for the questions and for the opportunity.
Yes, and so for those of you that have joined us, thank you very much. Please keep in mind that we have a bit of a break, and then this evening from 5:30 to 6:30, there's a fireside chat with Josh Tyler. So come back and join us later tonight. Have a good evening.